Good afternoon, everyone. Apart from those who are taking their leave, I believe the rest of us can settle down so we can run through this session. My name is Selowo once again. I'll be talking about the National Plan of Action by Naptip. The first National Plan of Action kicked off 2009. It has a 3-year lifespan. It expired in 2012. So when this topic came up, I was wondering what I was to talk about. Is it the old one or the new one? But I'll run through the old one and give an intermediary program of what has been happening after 2012 till date. So the United Nations Protocol advised that signatories to domesticate the provisions contained in the agreement. And Naptip, Nigeria is a signatory to that. Naptip carried out that. Okay. So there was need for a national plan of action in Nigeria, and Naptip being the focal agency in enforcing the laws concerning human trafficking and related matters, was saddled with that responsibility. The objectives of the national plan of action is to look at some thematic areas which were highlighted there: prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership. Then we used to call them the 4 Ps. Now we have 5 Ps. Policy has been added to that. And these are the aims: mass participation and ownership of the plan of action. The idea is to get the public involved by interaction, going for sensitization programs, workshops, town hall meetings, and the likes. The second is a multidimensional and multi-sectoral approach, which you can relate to the national referral mechanism, different ways of delivering interventions for victims of human trafficking. The other is interagency collaboration, gender-sensitive component, which I also talked about initially, as well as capacity building and awareness raising, which is part of what we are doing here today. We will interact, part of which brought about the establishment of a unit in Naptip we call IICU, the International Intelligence Cooperation Unit, to deal with matters that are across the border. Then, the management of the trafficking in person and forced labor and related data and information. I talked about data initially. It is key. It is useful, particularly even in national security. I recall that when we were doing the evacuation project from Libya about 3 years ago, data was key. Because while on there, we were there for about 2 months in Port Harcourt, receiving these victims or returnees, we were able to effect about 5 arrests right there at the airport. If we didn't keep our records well, we wouldn't be able to keep track on the suspects we were waiting for. And among those suspects, there was a female. So data is key in investigation and prosecution, which is one of the reasons it is part of the objectives of the National Plan of Action. Then good practices for replication and adoption nationwide, either federal, state, or local government levels. We should replicate these plans at various stages of government. Next slide. Thematic areas. These are the thematic areas. Sorry. Not sure. It's okay. Okay. Research and assessment. These are the thematic areas. We merged the 4 Ps with the operational clusters of Naptip. The 4 Ps and the operational clusters of Naptip. We have research and assessment, legal prosecution and law enforcement, prevention, protection, return and integration, prosecution. You see prosecution appeared twice. One has to do with the process of court appearances and everything. The other one has to do with the law itself, the provisions of the law, the interpretation of the law, and how it runs. International cooperation, monitoring and evaluation. Now, this is another strong area where Naptip paid attention because it will give a feedback to Naptip on what has been going on, how the execution of the plan has been. Has it been useful? Has it been effective? And what areas we need to improve on? International development. Not only is it that we are trying to develop a plan to work for us in the country, but we are also looking forward to working with other partners outside the country. The plan itself is an offshoot of an agreement, the protocol, that Nigeria is a signatory to. And so whatever we're developing here should be global best practice. Next slide. Now, the summary of the outcome of the first National Plan of Action was such that most of the objectives were met, but coordination and collaboration among enforcement agencies and service providers remained a major concern. This has been something that we've been dealing with over the years. I spoke earlier about limits and delineation of duties so that every participant will know where their own port of call stops or starts. So you won't be cross-carpeting into someone else's operations. So this is the major area we've been having issues. Even in rehabilitation, we've been having such issues. People wanting to do everything. They will counsel, they will shelter, they will provide education, they will provide support and everything. But it slows down or reduces the quality of intervention that we desire. So we make sure that everybody pick your strong point and present the services you can deliver. Right. After the expiration of the first National Plan of Action, Naptip thought it wise not to just rest on its oars, but to go ahead and develop a strategic plan as an offshoot of the first National Plan. Now, this is the type that we internalized and we can engraft into our own daily operations. These are from the feedback got from the NPA, the National Plan of Action. And we want to infuse them in our daily operations for officers on the field. Those who go to court, the prosecution officers, the detectives who work on the field, or the counselors who work in the shelters. Now, the National Strategic Plan had a 5-year lifespan from 2012 to 2017. And these are the 5 broad areas that they looked into: law enforcement and prosecutorial response, reinforcing public enlightenment, which is a preventive measure in tackling human trafficking. Madam Yvonne? Expanding platforms for victim protection. Like I said earlier, this is one area that cannot be overemphasized any day. Protection of victims is key. It also appeared in our referral mechanism. Then improving organizational development through policies. Like I said, policy is the last P that was added to the initial 4 Ps. Policies basically are those management decisions made so that it will improve service delivery. And this is developed based on the feedback you get from operatives on the field. You might sit up there in Abuja and develop a policy that may not favor operatives on the field. Okay? Maybe it might be their tools, it might be their mode, it might be their capacity. So you need to ensure that the policies you are putting in place is informed from the feedback you get from operatives who work on the field, because they are the ones that are making use of it. Then, okay, broadening the agency's public enlightenment drive by developing and airing television drama series. We know sometime early or mid, I think 2014, 2015, we had this program on NTA, Itoha, on Super Story. That's one of the offshoots of the strategic plan. The Public Enlightenment Department, the Press and Public Relations Department got together with partners in the media to develop this story and present it. And it had a tremendous impact, I can say. Other efforts made were the establishment of the Victims Trust Fund. The Victims Trust Fund is a fund where proceeds from forfeiture of properties or maybe compensations paid into a particular account can be accessed by victims for support and empowerment. So that has been running, but in recent times, I don't know if we've been able to fund it from convictions or anything. It has actually gone down. Yeah, no. On behalf of us. Okay. Now, we developed the standard operational manuals for stakeholders. Naptip runs on a standard operating protocol. We have the ways and manners things are done, day-to-day running of things, reporting structure, and this equally was extended to other partners to see, so that if you meet a brick wall, you should know why things are done that way. It won't be alien to you. Other efforts include development of the referral mechanism we spoke about initially. It wasn't there before, but during the strategic plan, there was a need to harness services that we cannot provide everywhere, but through stakeholders, we can reach our victims. You can see that it's a long shot from Abuja down to any local government in any other state. We don't have presence in the 36 states, but we have partners across the 36 states, and through them, service delivery can be made, and that is why we have the national referral mechanism. Then the evolution of a positive corporate culture for the agency. I want to make reference to Papa, your late dad. He said this statement. I was in primary school. He said, dress the way you want to be addressed. I will never forget. This formed part of the culture in Naptip. One, apart from being on special duties, your carriage. It has to do with you. One of the presenters mentioned earlier that the change has to start with you. I think that's Prof. It's a mindset thing. The way you see things is the way you react to them. Now, the culture is such that you have to be conscious, respect people's rights if you want to be respected, and ensure that things are done professionally. Like I said initially, we should not let emotions overtake the place of professionalism. Then evidence-based research. Evidence, if you want to prosecute, if there is no evidence, there is no point going to court. The matter will simply be thrown out. So, advocacy for public enlightenment initiatives, like I said earlier, schools, we were trying to inculcate this into the school curriculum, human trafficking as a topic to be treated in schools, and I hope that will commence this new session. Reenacting of the Agencies Act. The old one was totally repealed in 2015 to ensure that stringent punishments or punitive measures were taken to cover some gaps that were in the old act. And even this one is still, this 2015 act is still undergoing some process of adjustments, because we also identify some gaps and we want to block them. So hopefully very soon that will be effected. Now the outcome of all this is such that the fight against human trafficking requires collaborative efforts, intelligence sharing, and that stakeholders' involvement and development of stakeholders' capacity are imperative to success. No tree can make a forest. and no one knows it all. Our area of strength might be your area of weakness. That is why there's need for synergy. Now, in order to achieve all of this, Naptip has adopted the following tactics. Rejection of human trafficking as the burden of the whole is not just for Naptip, and that's why in other sister agencies like the NSCDC, you have the anti-human trafficking unit. In the police, you have the anti-human trafficking unit. In the immigration service, you have the same. So it's not just a Naptip problem, it's a societal problem. In societies, we have, in schools, we have school clubs being developed now. We have core members who are in their CD groups, they have anti-human trafficking CD groups. So you can see that we're trying to reach out to the grassroots as much as we can so that this information will get to the grassroots. Then, emphasis, partnership with CSOs, yes, synergy. All right, close engagement and collaboration with donor organizations. If we do not have the resources, like even the chairperson of the task force said, funding has been a major problem to executing some of our projects and programs. I'm sure even Pathfinders is still in need of funding. Yeah. I'm not promising. Okay, but we know that there are people who, when they see the good work you do, they want to support what you're doing. So please, whatever we do, let us document and ensure that we have ready information. When the Edo State Task Force was to be set up, all the governor was asking for was data. That was all he asked for. He said, give me data. And when Naptip presented to him, he looked at it and he told someone in his entourage, he said, it seems as if your local government is the most endemic. Yes, as at then it was Ikobaoka. And the man felt embarrassed, he was shamed, but that drove the need for this task force to come up. And they've been doing tremendously well. I commend you. So we have challenges, and some of the challenges we've identified are the gaps in the agency's enabling acts, which I mentioned earlier. It's going through a process to be further strengthened. Funding, I just spoke about that. Everybody here needs funding, whether you're a state actor or private. Then capacity and tools. Now, capacity building, you have to train, retrain, and retrain. If you think you know it all, then you'll be a dinosaur in no time. You have to unlearn to relearn. Okay? So, limited capacity in intelligence operations. It's not enough to just say, generally, okay, if Obalka is the most endemic, that is where we focus our attention. That is like, I don't know, it's more or less, it's not professional. When the Oba made a pronouncement some years back, what we observed was that, yes, the Juju priests stopped administering oaths, but they now moved out of Edo State to Delta State. And then, if Obaoka, that used to be the hotspot, became cold, then Ikan North in Delta State became hot. So, following these trends, if we do not expand our operations elsewhere, we'll just be focusing on a cold spot while they're having a field day elsewhere. Thankfully, the Benin Zonal Command covers Edo, Delta, and Bayelsa states, so we have reach in Delta State. We're able to curb some of these practices. Then, geographical spread of Naptip offices, like I said. We only have 9 zonal commands. We have 2 state commands. But we have state task force presence in 15 states as of date, and we are hoping to create more. This is part of the partnership we're talking about. We may not be able to fund those task forces, but in sharing of intelligence, capacity building, we'll be glad to partner with anyone. Now, security situation in the country, threat of militancy or terrorism, fear of reprisal attacks from human traffickers. Now, we know that, yes, like I mentioned earlier, during our Libya evacuation project in 2018, one of the suspects we had was actually a terrorist suspect. And we monitored him, followed him up, and picked him before he came back. And when he arrived, he was very quiet, he wasn't responsive. Of course, we respected his rights. We can't prosecute a terrorist. So we had to invite in the Department of State Services to come and carry their guest. And I'm sure he was dealt with accordingly. So we found out that some of these challenges, please, way forward, if we have to move ahead, we'll have to know where we're coming from. Based on the outcome of the strategic plan that Naptip inaugurated in 2012, a baseline assessment was carried out between April and June last year because there was need for another plan of action. Just at this time, it's been named National Action Plan, not Plan of Action. There's a switch in the name. Okay? And in November 2013 and 2020, last year, November 23rd, there was a commencement meeting to start the development process for a new plan of action, or a new action plan. And it's still in the making. It has not been finalized, but I'm sure that as soon as that is done, everyone will be informed of the content, the lifespan, and how to execute it. So, knowing that the development of the National Action Plan will serve as a strategic document that will guide the stakeholders in their operations in delivering interventions to victims of human trafficking and others in that group. Thank you very much.
Any questions about the National Action Plan?
Questions?